Hello, and welcome to our last webinar of 2019. My name is Michael Rand, Junior Associate Advisor at Telemis. For those that you have watched a few of our webinars this year, welcome back. And to those who are just joining us for the first time, thank you for being here. I'd like to take a quick second to tell you about Telemis. Telemis is a fee-based investment advisory firm that is headquartered in Southfield, Michigan. We manage just under $3 billion in assets from clients in all different investor segments. As you know, the topic we are covering today is the transference of wealth. We'll be approaching this subject by giving a brief overview of the estate plan, as well as how to initiate conversations with those who be the beneficiaries of a well-executed estate plan. While doing research for this topic, I came across a quote that really resonated with the underlying message of today's webinar. Communication plus knowledge equals empowerment. Studies show that the greatest risk to family wealth isn't investment allocations, returns, taxes, or politics. The greatest risks are family dynamics, miscommunication, and relationship problems within the family. In a nutshell, unprepared heirs. Research estimates that anywhere between $9 to upwards of $50 trillion will change hands between baby boomers and the generations that follow. While these numbers vary greatly, all indications point towards a major shift in wealth over the next 20 to 25 years, with the greatest shift happening in the next 10. Are you prepared to transfer your wealth efficiently? And if you have a well-crafted estate plan, will the heirs of your estate be ready to handle the responsibility of being stewards for the wealth you have created? But before we dive into how to prepare your heirs and talk to them about your financial picture, I'd like to introduce my guest presenter today, Andy Bass. Andy is the Chief Wealth Officer at Telemis. As Chief Wealth Officer, Andy is responsible for the strategic transference of wealth through a well-executed estate plan. While Andy does not provide legal advice on estate plan, his expertise lies in the efficient ways in which you can transfer wealth to either a philanthropic endeavor or to your family heirs. And with that, I'll pass the mic to Andy.
Thanks, Mike. Mike mentioned that there are a number of risks facing families when dealing with wealth transfer, and he mentioned some very important ones: family dynamic and family-centric type risks. I've actually found that another risks families face, usually the one being the creator of the wealth, is facing wealth transfer too casually and without a strategic and holistic thought-out plan. Most self-generated wealth came about as a result of a good long-term strategy combined with great execution. And that's true whether you're a business owner or an employee. The same attributes need to be employed when deciding what to be done with the wealth that has now been created. First of all, most people don't think about developing a strategic wealth plan, but rather they approach the topic with an urge to consider estate planning with taxes as being the main focus. And the reality is that most families or taxpayers will not be subject to the estate tax. And therefore, estate planning is much broader than just estate taxes. In fact, less than 1/10 of 1% of taxpayers today will face an estate tax given the current status of the estate tax law. And I hesitated for a second because that estate tax law is constantly in flux. And I wanted to point out one flash that I just received literally 5 minutes before we began this presentation, and that is that Congress has just agreed to a bipartisan appropriations bill that will be passed shortly, and incorporated in this bipartisan appropriations bill is going to be aspects of the Secure Act, which was passed by the House in the spring and is now close to actually becoming law. And that's going to change many dynamics of estate plans going forward. But given that, and the fact that estate taxes are not critical for most families, that doesn't mean taxes in total are not important. In fact, a well-thought-out, well-executed estate plan will actually significantly impact the income taxes of both the wealth creator and potentially future generations. Therefore, execution and strategy of an estate plan is much more critical today in regarding income taxes than estate taxes. I like to approach estate planning from the viewpoint of thinking about the process as being part of a family. In other words, your wealth is just like any other member of your family. Just as you created your children, you also created your own wealth. And what's critical in a well thought out strategic estate plan or wealth plan is how you are going to impact your children, how are you going to impact yourself, and how are you going to impact your wealth on an integrated basis. And in that respect, if you treat your wealth just as you would a child, keep in mind the following points. You need to be protective of your children. You need to be protective of your wealth. You need to provide direction and guidance when dealing with your children, and you need to build into your plan direction and guidance of what you want to have happen. You need to develop and prepare future generations for being able to handle the wealth, and you need to address efficient generational wealth shifting techniques that will actually increase how much you leave and leave it in a more efficient manner. And that's true whether you're dealing with philanthropic beneficiaries, next-gen beneficiaries, or even potentially dynastic future generation beneficiaries that don't even exist today. So what is a proper estate plan? A proper estate plan takes into account many aspects of what is important. First of all, a proper estate plan will allow you to speak when you can't speak for yourself. That could be due to incapacity or it could be due to death. A proper estate plan will maximize the net wealth transfer via efficient and specific goal-based processes and structures. You can protect your assets as well and ensure that the value that you created and the values that you feel are important will be transferred along with the wealth that you're passing on. And finally, prepare family and future generations, as Mike will talk about in the future, for how to deal with wealth. So what's important now is, hold on. There you go. What's important is how do you protect and accomplish what you deem the reasons that you created this wealth in the first place. Protecting and maximizing what family wealth by reducing current as well as future taxes and wealth transfer burdens is one of the main reasons estate planning processes happen, especially as one gets older. There are strategic ways to not only enhance the wealth you're going to leave to your family, but also make it more effective. You can also being the wealth creator, do things for your children or heirs that they cannot do for themselves. For instance, you can protect assets from their creditors, from your creditors. You can protect your assets that you created from future unwanted beneficiaries or unintended beneficiaries, all through drafting efficient and proper trust documents that really speak after you are no longer able to speak for yourself. Finally, protecting assets from unwanted scrutiny. I can't tell you how often we come across situations where an estate plan is done, but assets are not titled or documented properly so to be in control of a trust document, and as a result, they go through probate. And probate, while not necessarily bad, it does increase potential risks to the family in that now you're no longer in control of what will happen to your assets. A court is in control, and there are issues with costs and privacy as well in dealing with probate. So ensure that you not only have a well-drafted and executed estate plan, but ensure that all of your assets are properly titled so as to follow your estate plan in all instances. And finally, make sure you protect yourself. Again, incapacity is a significant issue as one gets older. And one wants to be sure that as the creator of wealth, that your assets are going to be doing what you want them to do for you during your lifetime, as well as what you want them to do for future generations. And that also is an important aspect of drafting proper documents, proper trust documents that will follow your wishes and keep your wishes enacted going forward. Now, so back to Mike again.
Thank you, Andy. If there are any questions regarding estate planning, we'll be answering those when the webinar is complete. There's a box on the bottom of the screen that says chat, and you can type your questions there for after. Well, we've all heard it before. First generation makes it, second generation spends it, and the third generation blows it. According to a study completed by the Williams Group, an estate planning firm, 70% of wealthy families lose their wealth by the second generation, and 90% will lose their wealth by the third generation. Time magazine even estimates that it takes an average recipient of an inheritance 19 days to buy a new car. Studies have shown that all too often, this underlying assumption that the next generation will blow through their inheritance is one of the main causes it happens. By constantly being told that the inheritors of wealth will leave nothing to the next generation, these heirs are expected to be passive and not contribute to the continuation of wealth. But it is within those expectations that the downfall of generational wealth begins. While many inheritors of wealth would like to contribute and ultimately carry on their family's legacy, if an estate plan treats them as a perpetual child, it can be difficult for that person to see beyond that role within the estate. But with open communication and honesty with your heirs, you can avoid this common misconception and allow your heirs to continue your legacy and goals for the wealth you have created. In the United States, the oldest family offices have only been around for 4 generations. The typical family office of today might only be in its second generation, so evidence of the stewardship might seem difficult to assert with conviction. But in England, such organizations, whether they are called family offices or not, have been around for numerous generations. And, in fact, family members do tend to see themselves as stewards of something bigger. With that mindset comes the financial discipline that created the wealth, the financial discipline of the first generation. What keeps it all together is a concept called family governance. Family governance is a process or structure to educate and facilitate communication between family members. If a family wants to maintain a business approach to its wealth, then that business needs bylaws. It also provides a form of constructive discussion, problem solving, and decisions about the family as it relates to the business of the wealth, as well as how the business relates to the family. Any family governance structure builds a strong family by providing a forum to set the vision for the family and define its philosophy towards the family's relationship with the business and the business's support of the family, uncover and maintain values by which the family-related enterprises will operate, educate family about the rights, responsibilities of ownership, family history, and values, and prepare for the future, establish and maintain an effective plan for ownership and key family leadership role succession, celebrate individual and family milestones, stay informed and communicate with others, recognize and resolve conflict and promote harmony. How might you achieve these goals, you ask? First, talk early and often. You may think you are encouraging hard work by not disclosing wealth to your kids, or that you're encouraging laziness by discussing wealth with your kids, but it's in this mindset that leads to the spending of the inherited wealth. If you have never talked about money with your kids, give them a crash course in financial literacy. This goes for your grandkids too. If you instill smart money lessons in them now, you have pushed the family wealth forward another 30 or 40 years. A good way to teach children the importance of being responsible with their finances is to have them participate in your charitable inclinations. Showing them the value of the dollar by helping others is a good foundation to build strong values upon. Second, discuss the will. If you're ready for true transparency, take it up a notch and bring the elephant into the room, the will. Parents and grandparents should communicate the what's and whys of their will in a group setting with all their children present long before the will is actually read. That way, you can hash out any issues as a family beforehand. It is better than after the fact when the patriarch or matriarch is not around to explain or adjust and things devolve into an all-out legal war. Siblings will eventually find out who got what, and without proper communication, this can destroy families. Another important aspect is to have an estate directory. This is a compiled list of all the relationships you have built to handle your wealth. If you were to get hit by a bus today, would your spouse or children know who to call? Do they know your CPA? Do they know your attorneys? Do they know your advisors? Introducing your children to those who have helped put an estate plan in order is almost as important as the estate plan itself. If you are uncomfortable having these conversations with those who stand to benefit, it helps to bring in members of the estate directory to serve as intermediaries between you and your family. It can help bridge the discrepancies and further explain why certain assets and accounts are structured the way they are, as well as help explain why there may be an equal beneficiary designation. Maybe you plan to leave your business to one child who's involved in the business, but greater liquid assets to your other children. It helps to explain the reasons why this may happen. Another effective way to communicate with your children about your estate is to conduct a series of family meetings. Decision-making regarding finances requires a different type of interaction with your heirs. You're not just planning a family vacation here. The first meeting should be learning more about one another, what each heir's strengths, interests, skills, and communication and learning styles are. In the second meeting, identify shared family values and a vision for the future of the family. How are you supposed to pass on a legacy if those who stand to benefit don't know what you want your legacy to be? These meetings create a deeper appreciation for each other, a framework for future decisions, and a sense of purpose. The third meeting should focus on two important points. One, how can you assure that your heirs are being responsible and committed to the stewardship of the family's assets? And two, what can you do to assure that you have effective, healthy, and strong family relationships? How you approach these last two subjects are entirely up to you, and maybe you don't owe them any money, but at the very least, you owe them honesty why. And that kind of concludes our webinar, so if you have any questions, we'll open up the forum now to take questions. No, if there are no questions, we want to say thank you for attending. We hope this has been educational and beneficial for those who have attended. You can find us at telemis.com for any other questions, and we're happy to help. Thank you.